I want to welcome you all. I appreciate you all coming each Monday as you do, or jumping in when you can. That's appreciated as well. I thought that there'd be a couple more people on here this morning, but we're going to get started. Maybe they'll jump on a little bit late. But I have a special guest this morning that I thought was going to be an amazing idea. I think that, we all need additional help in becoming more organized. And I actually used a professional organizer once before, and it was just simply amazing. And I just happened to get to know Buffy here just, I don't know, a week or two ago, and thought that, not only do I want to do something with my office, but I thought it would be something for you guys that would be beneficial to you, but then that you can also use for your buyers and sellers. And this is what will set you apart from all the other agents, because this is one thing that I know that most agents are not even thinking about. So, Buffy, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and you can maybe give everybody just a little bit about yourself and get started.
Great. Well, thank you all for having me. Like Paul said, my name is Buffy. I own Be Organized Today. My clients lovingly referred to me as the Clutter Slayer because I come in and I help them knock out their disorganization. We do actually help a lot of buyers and sellers with their homes, either getting it pre-packed so it can be staged and so people can come in and instantly want to buy it, or getting it unpacked so that they can create systems from the get-go. I have a degree in organizational behavior from Rollins. It is basically the efficiency of a workplace, which I've parlayed into homes, as well as businesses. We still do commercial spaces as well. But yeah, people ask me all the time, like, how did you get into this? And I'm like, I've just always really loved organization. It's something I do to calm my nerves when I'm in my own home. I tease that my husband hates it when I move our living room around, so I have to go do it in other people's houses now. So we've lived in our house for 7 years, and things are kind of where they're going to be. And I just love helping people past it. I think a lot of times people get stuck, they get overwhelmed. Ironically enough, disorganization is very often rooted in perfectionism, in the thought of, if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it at all. I won't even start. So, we come in and we help people move past that, help them get through all the decisions that need to be made, because that's what clutter is. It's a series of unmade decisions. I'll decide on that later, just throw it on the pile. And then the pile gets bigger and bigger and bigger, and then, comatose. So that's what we do. We help people make their way, not only just moves, we help people kind of downsize in place as well. So if someone's living in their homes for a really long time and, they got 20, 30 years worth of stuff that they're trying to make their way through, that could be a really daunting task. Anybody that's lost a loved one, that also can be a very daunting task to go through their belongings. So we kind of come in and bring the compassion, we bring the skill, and we bring the labor so that people can make it through these kind of, challenging times. I think they say that moving is one of the biggest stressor right behind the loss of a loved one. So we come in and we help it become a more balanced, easy liaison to their new homes. So what he was trying to share with you is I have just a simple kind of retrain your routine spiel that I do for anytime I do talks for groups. And it's just kind of ideas on how to help people start the process of getting organized, which, I'm sure all of you are super organized, but we can always learn something. So hopefully there will be something in this that you hear that will help you through. Well, the first thing I want to say is disorganization. Often, a lot of my clients, once they call me, I tell them the first thing we need to do is add some forgiveness into this whole situation. A lot of times people are like, I can't believe I let it get like this. How could I let this happen? And I'm just like, you know what? Life happened. What was going on? And oftentimes they were busy, there was family, there was other commitments involved, and life just occurred. Piles happen because you're busy. And now we can get everything at our fingertips, literally at our front door from Amazon. So, it's very easy for things to add up. So one of the things I like to talk about is inexpensive ways to get organized. It doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg to get organized. We see these shows and everyone has to have everything perfectly so, but there's other solutions that will work just as easily. So I love baskets and I love bins. They're the heroes of helping you get organized. The idea behind it, though, is not to just have a basket to throw everything into. The idea is to have baskets and bins that are designated per category. So, you know, if you have a basket, maybe that's just for the shoes. It's not for the shoes and the paperwork and the kids' homework and like the backpacks, because then that's where the disorganization begins. If things don't have a home, it's homeless. That's why it's floating around and kind of landing in different places. I always tell people the things of yesteryear generally live in our storage areas, and the things of today are the things that are spilling out. So a lot of times, you know, we want you to get into your dark storage areas so you can see what's in there. And I'm going to probably guarantee if you've been looking for something, that's where it's at. I always tease I should have named my company, hey, I've been looking for that, because we hear it all the time. And it's a lot of fun when I tell people that, because then they're like, oh, that's where that's been. And I'm like, no, 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 that's the same. So, so don't forget about bins, and they don't have to be expensive. You don't have to go to the Container Store and get all of the best things, but also don't just go buy a bunch of bins without an intention. Don't go and buy them thinking I'm just going to make my house so organized by throwing everything in here. Ideally, you'll know what the bins are for. So you'll know that, okay, I need 2 bins for the kids' toys. I need a bin for the shoes. I need a basket for this. So identifying your needs often requires the declutter first, you know, figuring out what you have, getting it into categories so that you can really take stock of what you own. I like to tell people we are definitely creatures of habit when it comes to organization, when it comes to stuff. We have a tendency to acquire the same 5 to 7 categories. So, you know, when you go home today, or if you're at home, pay attention. What are your categories? What are those things that you automatically purchase, that you're automatically drawn to, that you probably have some of all over the house? So that's really what we talk about, is getting it into categories so that you can go, oh, so I buy a screwdriver every time I go to the store. I didn't realize that I had it in every nook and cranny of the house. And now that I've got them all together, I realize I have 37 of them. Do I need this many? So it's an idea of understanding where your tendency is to purchase. So of course, the first natural question everyone asks me are, what are my categories, being the organizer, because my house must be perfect. And I'm like, well, we live in our house first and foremost, so it's not perfect, but it is definitely organized. But I love rugs. So, you know, you wouldn't think that's a big deal to understand, but every time I go somewhere, I am drawn to rugs, and I want to purchase rugs, and I want to bring rugs home. So having that awareness means that when I see a rug that I want, I now know, okay, if I want a new rug, I have to get rid of one of the rugs I have. I have to imagine a place the rug will go. And 9 times out of 10, I don't buy the rug because I know I have no more room for it. But my awareness around it is what's allowed me not to just automatically knee-jerk reaction, bring more rugs into my home. So paying attention to what your categories are can help you keep the clutter at bay. You know, I kind of equate clutter to a diet. If you don't want to eat ice cream and candy, you don't bring ice cream and candy in the house. So if you don't want to have clutter, you really decide at the door what comes in, which with kids and things like that, it can be more challenging. So I personally love clear bins. I think they're best. I think it's easier to see things, especially in a garage. Having all clear bins is very helpful. If you have the opaque ones, the ones you can't see through, then that's when it has a tendency to just throw it in that bin, it'll be fine. And then your categories start to get intertwined. So clear. If it's like in a space that you don't want to see the clutter, then baskets are really nice. There are labels that you can put on it so that, again, you can keep it categorically together. Over the door shoe holders are actually really great as well. People think they're only for shoes, but you can use it for tools. You can use it for Barbie dolls. You can use it for toys. Sometimes you can do gift wrap if you kind of cut the bottoms of it and let the gift wrap stay on the door that way. So there's a myriad of uses for these inexpensive organizing products. So don't ever, you know, think that I have to have the perfect thing to get organized, because again, that kind of boils back down into that perfectionism, the perfect way of doing things. I always tell people done is better than perfect. You can tweak done. You can build upon done. You know, if you keep the idea of one day I'll get organized and this perfect picture in your head, you'll never reach it if you don't make small steps towards it. So don't be afraid to kind of think outside the box. I always tell people, if you can't be weird in your own home, where can you be weird, right? So don't be afraid to do things. And sometimes houses are set up weird. A lot of times my clients will call me in and it's generally it's a storage issue, especially with these big open concept homes nowadays. There's not a lot of storage. The closets have been taken out so that you can have the high ceilings, so you can have the open living rooms. And then you look around and you're like, oh, I didn't realize when I moved in, there was only 2 cabinets in the kitchen. So, you know, a lot of times it is a storage area. So sometimes you do have to think outside the box. You do have to try something different for that particular space. I think one of the best pieces of advice when I purchased my house from my cousin, actually, he was like, let the house tell you what it needs. You know, don't just immediately fill it up, like wait and let it tell you, like, let it tell you, I need a little table in this corner. You know, I need a little storage over here. Because a lot of times we move in, we want things, you know, we just throw things in place and then that becomes the organization from which we build upon. Food storage containers, I mean, it doesn't have to be difficult. Ziploc bags are also really great if you don't, you know, in a pinch, if you're trying to organize and get things categorized and then get them sort of segregated from each other. You know, as easy as a Ziploc bag to like house your paper clips or whatever, because then now you know, okay, I have 10 Ziploc bags that have X, Y, and Z in it. Now I can go purchase the proper storage solutions for them, because you know what you're housing. Shoe boxes. So I don't actually own a dresser. You know, again, there's that weird thing in my home. I don't own a dresser. I don't have a lot of space in my room for a dresser. So all of my stuff is actually in the closet. So in shoebox bins, clear shoebox bins, I have my tank tops, I have my socks, I have my undies. There's some command hooks along the wall to hang my belts and things like that. So it doesn't have to be, you know, this Pinterest pretty perfect thing. It just needs to be functional. It needs to make sense to you. So, you know, whenever you think of organization, there is a lot of nuance. There's, you know, the way that you use something. We could all own the same products and use them differently. So understanding the way that you use it and allowing yourself to live within that realm as opposed to what other people tell you it should be is, you know, a lot of, again, it's going to go back to that forgiveness. I'm not perfect Pinterest pretty, you know, my house isn't that way because we live in our spaces, right? I'm pretty sure if you look at Pinterest, most of the people aren't living in the spaces they're showcasing. I have a client that has a garage and he likes to watch what he calls garage porn, which is like the most beautiful garages in the world. And he was telling me there's this gentleman that highlights his garage and he's like, but he doesn't work in this garage. It's just to show, you know? So like, you've got to understand when you're working in your space, you want it to be something where, yes, I can make a mess, but then it's quick and easy for me to get things back into their homes because everything does have a home. A lot of times that's the issue. So keeping it all organized, you want to make sure that you establish a decluttering habit, right? So if the habit is to bring things in, dump it on a pile, you see how quickly that adds up. So if you think about it, if you do the reverse psychology of that, you come in and you put something away every day, then the piles will disappear over time. I always tell people you would be amazed what you can get done while you're waiting for the microwave, like in your kitchen. It takes 2 minutes to put away all the dishes. You know, so getting into the habit as you're in the kitchen or cooking or whatever, and instead of scrolling on your phone, actually taking a couple of minutes and putting away things, because next time you come in the kitchen, you're like, oh, it's done, right? It might not be perfect, but it's done. So, you know, understanding the relief that comes from done. You know, I think we've all been told that everything needs to be perfect, but there's actually a lot of beauty in imperfection. There's a lot of things that you can build upon. And I always, you know, when it comes to like, well, what if I need that thing one day? I'm like, well, what if you don't have it or you can't find it? What would you do? You know, the solution often is I'll go buy it again. And for me, what I really love is I'll improvise, right? I will find, don't they say that, you know, necessity is like the greatest invention or whatever? So sometimes when you put yourself against the wall and you don't have everything at your fingertips, you actually find a means of creating something more beautiful, or, you know, falling into something that works even better because you were forced to think outside the box. So, you know, when anyone's like, well, what if I need it one day? And I'm like, well, you know, you'll figure it out. We are ingenious human beings. We figure it out. What happens every time we have a problem? We figure it out. So sometimes less is more when it comes to stuff like that. So of course, clothes is always a big one. I always say if it doesn't fit or flatter, you know the things that you put on, that you look in the mirror and you go, ew, and then you take right back off and hang back in your closet. Having a spot for that where you can just throw it in there, and that's like your donation spot. Let everyone in the house know where theirs are, you know, one in the garage, one in the closet. That way you put it on and you go, ew, you put it in the donation bin. It doesn't end up in your everyday space. So again, accumulation is a muscle. It's one that I think as Americans or as, you know, human beings, we've really gotten good at. We're good at accumulating things. So we built that muscle. So the release muscle needs to be built as well. So oftentimes I hear 1 in, 1 out. So my conventional wisdom is 1 in, 3 to 5 out, because then if you do 1 in, 1 out, you're staying at the same level you're at. If you do 3 to 5 out, then you're going to minimize and downsize. And it doesn't have to be the same type of thing. So again, we're building the release muscle. So, you know, if you bring in a new t-shirt, you can get rid of a pair of shoes and a tool and a pot. You know, so the idea here is that as things come in, we are also releasing things out of the home. That way the volume stays at a minimum, you know, because we all have clutter. I have things that I don't need. So, you know, it's nice to have though. So the clothes, if it doesn't fit, it doesn't flatter. I always hear, well, like if I lose weight one day, I'm going to want these things. And I'm like, cool. Are you trying to lose weight? And normally the answer is like, well, no. And I'm like, all right, well then, you know, and if you lose weight, don't you deserve something new to fit and flatter your body? Because as we grow and shrink, our bodies actually change. Like, I don't know about all of you, but I've done the weight loss, weight gain thing before. And when I lose, my body's shaped different, you know, because maybe I've added weights in, or maybe I've added in Pilates or something, you know, something has changed that those things that used to fit me and flatter me no longer do. So oftentimes when it comes to clothes, unless it's like this irreplaceable thing you're never going to find again, I say release it. And you know, if you look back in all of your experience, whenever you've needed something, has it not come into your realm? Have you not found a way to get it? So that's usually the seed I like to bury around that stuff. So mail, people often ask me about mail, paperwork, things like that. It comes in the truckload, especially if you have children. A couple of things you can do. There is the Stop Junk Mail. You can sign up for it. One of the biggest things that I've done is to put an alert on my credit report, so I don't end up getting a lot of those pre-approved credit card offers, which is a lot of the junk mail that comes in. So if you put an alert, the only thing is when you go to get credit, you do have to jump through an extra hoop, but you know, no one's stealing my credit because there's an alert and I'm not getting all the junk mail. So there are some ways to stop the junk mail. And then sort it right when it comes in. You know, I know a lot of people have a habit of just throwing it in a pile. I stand out by my recycling bins and, you know, I throw away the stuff I know I don't want. I take the stuff I need out of the envelopes so that it makes it into the house without all the excess stuff. Another big topic usually is gift guilt. People giving you a gift that you don't know what to do with, that you don't love, that just floats around your house and causes you angst and, you know, frustration because you don't want or need it. If someone gives you a gift, that is yours to decide what to do with at that point. And the question I always end up asking too, well, if mom came over, do you have it displayed or is it stuffed in the back of a closet somewhere? Right? If it's stuffed in the back of a closet, she doesn't know you own it anyway. And if she hasn't asked about it, you know, maybe it's time to just go ahead and say goodbye. People often give gifts out of obligation, not because they thought it was going to be the greatest thing you've ever received. So you've got to remember that when you're receiving something. You know, a lot of times my family knows if you give me what I call a filler gift, it's going to be donated. So don't waste your money. You know, I'd rather you just give me a card. So, and you can tell people that, like, hey, I'd really love to have an experience with you. Why don't we plan something? You know, that way they have an idea. So if you have a birthday party, you can even like put parameters on it. You know, I'd really love X, Y, or Z. If your kids are having a birthday party, they really need more of this so that people have, you know, the parameters, and then people are going to give you what they give you. But just know that whatever you receive is yours to choose what to do with. And you can always say, I passed it on to the next person that I knew could use it. And what are they going to say? I don't love you anymore. you're not my friend anymore, you know? So like letting go of gift guilt is probably one of the biggest things. So in the same vein, if you're gonna give gifts with a shelf life. So food, you know, gift cards, an event, something that will expire, something that, you know, when the expiration date's there, they know they can toss it. They don't have to live with it for the rest of their lives. Because, you know, we all have this obligation. So if you aren't organized at this particular moment, I do not suggest that you clear out your entire garage this weekend. It's not going to be helpful to you. I suggest that if you decide that you want to get more organized, start small. Start with one shelf in the garage. Start with one drawer. You know, start with one spot. Master the art of getting the categories together and figuring out how to move past that. Because a lot of times people get stuck in the, okay, I own this thing. What do I do with it? That you're jumping from A to Z in that scenario. So the first thing is, what I have this thing. How do I use this thing? Where does this thing make the most sense to live? Where would I go looking for this thing? So there's a lot of questions in between. I have this thing and where should it live? So a lot of times that's where I find that people get stuck, is having all the perfect answers. So I just tell people, get it into categories first, take stock of those categories, see if you own 37, you know, screwdrivers. And if you do, can we pick out your 10 favorite, you know, so, and they can live in different places in the house, but just now the beauty is you now understand that screwdrivers are one of the categories you have a habit of picking up. So the next time you go to the store and you go to like lean into a screwdriver, you're like, oh, wait, I already have screwdrivers. That's the idea behind understanding your categories. So remember, the less you have, the easier it is to showcase the items you truly love. If you have less stuff, you have less stuff to design with, to have in decoration. My house is at capacity. If someone gives me a gift, I go, oh, that's so sweet. Thank you. You know, I'm still excited about it. I don't like, you know, spit in their face and throw it back at them. I just, you know, I let them know that I love it and that I'll do my best to incorporate it. But if I can't, then I'm just going to pass it on to the next guy. You know, I come from very humble beginnings. My mom worked 3 jobs. We shopped at thrift stores. Like that's where I got all of my clothes. And as a kid, it was really embarrassing. But as an adult, it's become my superpower, being able to put things together that don't seemingly go together and, you know, allowing the release of it. So I tell people, when you let something go and you donate it, you're doing something twofold. You are giving back to your community, essentially, because a lot of the shops that we give to are local community based. Like we have a, I'm over by Longwood, so we have the Sharing Center, which is basically a food bank. Homeless people can go in there and shower. Like the money goes back to my immediate community. So I tell them that when you donate, money goes back to your immediate community, and you're allowing someone that otherwise might not be able to afford these items an opportunity to now buy these items. You're making that person's life better. That item gets another life, and it gets actually get used for its intended purpose. So, you know, understanding when you release something, it's so much bigger once you let it go. If it's just causing you angst, then, you know, if you look at it and every time it's like talking trash to you, like, oh, you spend too much money on me, you never use me, I'm just collecting dust, da, 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 those are the things that need to leave your space. And make sure you have a plan. Again, don't go out there and clean out your garage if you haven't touched it in 6 years. You know, clean out a shelf, clean out a drawer. So again, start small, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 5 minutes, a minute. If you haven't done it in a while, don't put so much pressure. Don't let the perfectionism win. I'm going to do everything today, because that's when the overwhelm comes in and that's when the shutdown happens. You can set reminders on your calendar. Again, having the bi-monthly donation items. One of the best things I've noticed for myself to get organized is to host a party. And I don't mean now it's time to run around and shove everything in the closet. I mean, let me schedule a party for a month from now, and I'm going to incrementally deal with each of the areas that have started to, you know, expand. I love linens too. Towels, sheets, it's a problem. Reward yourself for any of these accomplishments. Pat yourself on the back. Did a great job. This organization, people don't realize there's more to it than just stuff. Right? It's dreams, it's intentions, it's money, it's memories. There's so many other things wrapped up in your stuff besides just the stuff. There's a reason you're not doing it. So if you do it, give yourself that, like, hey, I did it. And you'll notice it wasn't as hard as you thought. It's kind of like that thing that you've put off for a year and it takes you 5 minutes to do once you finally do it. It's the same premise. And if you are going to reward yourself, preferably with something with a shelf life, a treat, an activity, something that's not going to add to your clutter. So I ran through it quickly because I don't know what kind of time you guys have, but that's it. So if you have questions,
Well, Buffy, I'd like to jump into tying this into our business to be able to offer the service to our buyers and sellers. All right, because this is what will differentiate us from all the other real estate agents. And I know, there's some agents that will offer the services of a, appraiser and actually pay for that. Some will offer to pay for a home inspection. And this isn't saying that, well, an agent should also pay for an organizer, but to bring an organizer into the equation for when people are packing up, getting ready to move, and then when they're unpacking, after they've moved into their new home. So if you can talk about that for a couple minutes, that'd be great.
definitely. Well, so we just recently had someone that was living in Baldwin Park. I mean, it was one of the houses in Baldwin Park up for sale, so I know that there's competition there already, but we downsized 10 years worth of stuff. So, it definitely makes a difference for your sellers to know that their stuff is in place, it's ready to move. Because what we do is we come in and we get into those dark storage areas, those places that have just had stuff shoved into them for the past 10 years. And that's where we are differentiating, okay, what's moving with you. So we do what we call the pre-pack. So we'll start to pre-pack all of the things that they know that they want. And then we downsize at the same time, because then they're seeing what they don't want, what they don't need. And inevitably what happens, even if we downsize, people keep things for the next home because they really don't know, right? I don't know if I'm going to need that in the next home. That's going to be useful to me, which is fine. So we'll pre-pack it. We'll get it, labeled so that they know. We do try to label it so that people understand what they need to open first and what can wait till last. A lot of times if we do the pre-pack, that would be the stuff that they would open last, because the stuff that we packed first is the stuff they're really not using. So I always tell them, like, hey, don't forget, if we packed it and it has this color on it or whatever, open that last. And the reason we do that is because we realize that it's probably stuff they're never going to need. And so if it's in those boxes long enough, eventually they'll get into it and be like, yeah, I didn't need it. Or maybe they'll find a treasure down the line. I was going to say, if it was something that you're interested in as far as like offering the service for a client, I do a consultation very similar to this, kind of talking to them about what makes sense, what doesn't. So that might be something you want to purchase for them. And then if they want to move forward with the process, they can pay for the rest of it themselves. Just throwing that out there. And then the unpacking, I actually feel like this is where we shine the most. Number one, because most people move into their houses, they half unpack their boxes, they shove everything into the cabinets and closets, and then that's where it lives. And that's really where disorganization grows. That's where it starts, because they never set up a system from the get-go. They were just like, I'll decide later. So we go in, we get all of the boxes unpacked. So number one, they can get rid of the cardboard, because there's something about cardboard that makes you feel unsettled. It's very unsettling to have it in the home. So if, we had a client that we unpacked. It was 3 days. It was a $5,600 or 5,600 square foot house. And he told us, he was like, I feel like I've lived here a year. And I was like, oh, that's a nice compliment. Like, you're home, where things are at. I tell people that if they work with us, they should be able to cook a meal, take a shower, find their underwear, and fall into bed within the first day or two. And we'll get the boxes out, which is huge. And then we'll get the system set. We'll talk about, hey, now that we have everything out in your kitchen, which is usually the overwhelming part for them, because I don't know if you've ever had mover services come in. What they do when they do an unpack, they basically throw it in any space available. And then the client's left to try to figure it out themselves. We get it all out. We get it like kind of categorized, get all the pots together, get all the plates together, get all the coffee cups together. And we go, do you need all of these? So we almost do a downsize again while we're there. Okay, of all of these that you need, what do you use the most often? So that we can identify their daily use stuff. Because one of the things that often impedes organization is that your non-daily use stuff is in with your daily use stuff. And that kind of throws a wrench into the system. So if, there's a crock pot in front of, my favorite pot, I don't know, it's an interesting random example. And every time I need my favorite pot, I have to remove the crock pot. Now, when I want to use my pot, there's a whole thought process that needs to happen. And then maybe I won't even make the meal because it requires the pot, right? Because there's something in front of it. I mean, we're simple. Humans want to make things complicated, but at the end of the day, we are all just simple beings. And so the more simple we can make it, and the more you guys understand prime real estate. It's the same with your stuff, right? And the 2 cabinets in the middle of my eyesight in the kitchen, prime real estate. Only things I use daily. It shouldn't have anything else. It shouldn't have Christmas stuff, right? It shouldn't have holiday stuff. There should be a Christmas cabinet. So that's a lot of what we're doing, is we're identifying what do you use, how often do you use it, and then the stuff that you're not using super often, we create backup areas for. And then I tell people, if you're looking for something, check your backup area. And then that way, it's differentiated.
Can you give us an idea of what the what's the initial consultation cost?
So it's $125 an hour or $225 for 2 hours. If people do end up purchasing a larger package, so we do 24, 48, and 96-hour packages. If they end up with the 96, we credit the whole thing. If they do the 48, we credit 125. And if we do the 24, we credit 25. So some of it does get credited if they move forward. And then each of our packages include just additional perks. So with the 96-hour package, we'd bring in the some lazy Susans and some can risers and like things that we know are often used and necessary when setting up a home. So we would bring in some of that stuff. I'm going to say on average with people, between the 24 and the 48 is probably our average. I'm sure that's the next question. So it's $100 an hour per person. So a 24-hour package is $2,400, a 48-hour is $4,800, and then a 96-hour is $9,600. And then it can be broken up, and I can bring it up to a team of 4. So usually on unpacked days, we want a team of 4 so that they can cook a meal, take a shower, find their underwear, and fall into bed. So we can kind of divide and conquer. So with if that were the case, 8 hours for 4 people, so it's a 32-hour day, if you think of it that way.
Okay. All right, that makes sense. So you guys see how you can tie this into your business as an offering that makes sense to help buyers and sellers. It's such an overwhelming process. A lot of times people don't even know where to begin. And I know that some people that can afford it, they hire the moving company and hire the packers that come with the moving company, and then they unpack. And like Buffy says, I mean, you just don't know where it's going, and they don't seem to care as much about your stuff, which can be a big impact on what happens to it. So any other questions, comments? It's your opportunity, guys. This is a chance to pick Buffy's brain and see how she can help you or your business. And I think it's great on the personal level as well. Get yourself organized. I know that I look in here and like I just see clutter, and it's time for me. I've got a pretty good sized library here, and I've offered it to the kids, and none of our kids really care to have many of these books. So they're like, well, I do the audiobook. All right, do the Kindle. And so, they don't want the stuff, and I don't blame them. But, I just see clutter now, and it's just gotten too much. So, so it's time to purge. And anytime somebody's moving, that is the ideal time to purge, clear out the stuff that's been piling up, because it does not take long. For people when they move into a place and then a year or 2 down the road, they're moving out. You think that, well, it was only a year or 2, but the amount of stuff that they brought in that year or 2 is huge. So, so it definitely want to. Araya says, "I'll take some of the real estate books." Well, Araya, we'll talk, man. I got some good stuff I can offer you. So, but yeah, we've got we collect so much stuff over the years, and I used to have a lot more collectibles, but I've got tired of dusting them, so they really became dust collectors. And so I have a few years ago, Valerie and I had decided to become minimalist as much as we possibly could. So we just have been chipping away at stuff over time, and so we're almost there, but we still have a ways to go.
I always
it's
tell
definitely,
people clutter's visual noise. Sorry.
no, I was
Yeah,
going to say it's definitely better, but we do have a long way to go. And
yeah,
when I release something, like you said, and get rid of it, I try to, really realize that, it's not useful to me anymore, but it definitely could be useful to somebody else. And with that, it's a little easier to let go. So,
Yeah,
I'm
it's
trying
hard
to
when
get
you spend a
Valerie to
lot of
let
money
go of
on
her stuff,
something.
her clothes from the '80s. Yeah, so
Hey, those are
if it
popular now.
fits.
Like that's sought after. It's coming
yeah.
back.
Some of it still fits.
I mean, if you wear it, like that's the thing, like clutter's visual noise. So like I said, it talks to you, right? So you
Yeah.
pick up that gown that you bought because you were going to go to a ball and you never went to a ball. We live in Florida. Where's there a ball, right? So like there's certain things attached to why we purchase things. And I often like people to understand like the purchasing of a thing and the utilization of a thing, two separate things. Sometimes we purchase things because it's fun. I think I saw a Facebook post one time. It said buying crafting supplies and crafting are two separate hobbies, right? So if you think about it that way, like sometimes the purchase is the thing. It was what we needed. It's how, we felt compelled to do it that day. And that was satisfactory in and of itself. And so the utilization is a whole nother thing. So then there's this reconciliation, like, well, I bought it to do this thing. So then you almost have to reconcile that you're not going to do that thing. So it's more than just the stuff. And that's why you get stuck. That's why everyone gets stuck. There is a mental process of untying. I work with a lot of boomers. So a lot of the thing I get from them is, well, I might need it one day. And I'm like, cool. Do you know where it's at? And usually they're like, well, no. And I'm like, all right, cool. Then how are you going to use it? Right. So like a lot of it is this mental work. It's not just physical. It's physical and tedious and it's in and of itself as well. But there's a lot of mental work that goes into it also.
Yeah, that's the thing we don't think about is that the mental work that goes into things, making decisions, just deciding on what to wear every day. That's why, Steve Jobs became very famous because he wore the same thing day in and day out because that was one less decision he had to make in the morning, just deciding on what to wear. And if you really stop and think about it, all the decisions we have to make throughout the day, how draining is that? And it can be very draining, as minimal of a task as it might seem that you're having to make a decision on. It all adds up. Cindy, you had your hand up. Did you have something you wanted to say or ask?
I personally, I have a problem with cards, birthday cards, and then in the end, they just have someone's name on them. I mean, they're really nice, but and honestly, as you know, they probably only spent 2 minutes looking for it. But oh, that's so nice. It's so special. But I probably the rest of us may understand that one. And like you, I have that linens. Oh, what happens if we have guests over and the beds are full and they all end up on the floor, so we have to put blankets on them, but they've been sitting there for years. So that's one I just.
Well, my first question would be like, how often do you have people over that they end up on the floor?
Yes, exactly. I have teens and you expected them to have more friends over, but they just tend to go out for a couple hours and come back. So, that the whole sleepover doesn't really happen as, even Elliot can probably understand that if you have the same issue. He has young kids too. The other thing I was curious about, as far as the consumers or the homeowners, I'm not sure. I got to look at, maybe you guys remember the age of baby boomers. How far does it go? What is the next generation? I know people, let's say maybe in their 80s or 90s now, used to go into their houses and it was so full of stuff and their memorabilia was amazing where they had all these traveling around the world items, and they were very conservative where I remember going into some man's house and had this great big huge hat and it was full of all these amazing hats. They look like something you'd wear in England. but he's not the only one. There's a lot of homeowners that do have that amazing things that, they're trying to move or pass on, but they definitely don't want to let go. You may see that, I don't know, at like some of these crazy estate sales.
Yeah. So we offer two separate services. We have what we call the sort and store. So if I start working with somebody and I've asked them about 5 or 10 things and the answer is to keep every time, because usually if you're working with someone, they're really willing to let things go. And usually we start in the garage or like the kitchen, kind of the less personal areas. So if they're keeping everything, we do what we call a sort and store. So we sort it, we label it, we store it, we zone it. And we just stop asking if they want to let things go. So I do start to know who I'm working with. The boomers are tricky because they have all been ingrained with I might need it one day because their parents are from the Depression. So it's very much ingrained in them, which I try to combat them with the questions. But what happens is you have to realize it takes some time, right? I'm planting a seed with all of you. And the idea here is the seed can die off or you'll continue to water it and it'll eventually sprout. So the idea behind our sort and store is that we'll sort it, we'll store it, and at some point they might be ready to downsize it because a lot of times it's all intermingled, it's mixed up, so they haven't seen it in a while. And so that might be their pushback. Well, I haven't seen it in a while, so how could I have used it? Okay, fine. We'll sort it, we'll store it. And I always tell them, I'm like, okay, we sorted it, we stored it. This is your time mark. And so 6 months from now, a year from now, if you haven't touched any of these bins, you haven't been looking for anything, then that's your cue that you can start to downsize these things. So a lot of times it's just, again, it's more than just stuff. There's so much psychology behind disorganization. People with ADHD struggle with it a lot of times. People with the perfectionism aspect of it is huge for people. You wouldn't think it, right? You'd be like, how can someone be a perfectionist if they're disorganized? Well, because they couldn't make the perfect choice. And they didn't have time. They didn't have all the time in the world to make the perfect choice. So they just didn't. And so it piles on. I don't know if that answered your question, but.
No, yes. I wish you had a solution for emails.
What's
What
the
happened to
solution
emails?
for
Emails
the,
that pile up. That's
yeah.
you always
Well,
want to save them for
there
a
are
rainy
apps
day.
for
Digital
that.
clutter is a whole nother beast.
I'll hire you to take care of my email system.
Digital clutter is a whole nother beast. I have not mastered that myself, so give me time. Did you
Cindy, you
ever
might
have
need to
it?
get the app. Get the app that I see advertised all the time. I forget what it is. I looked into it, but because I have so many different email accounts, the fee was for just one account, and I was like, well, and I'm not gonna try to get this for all my emails. So, but it looks like pretty cool. I forget the name of it, but but it looks like a
Fixer or
really good
something?
app. What is that?
I think it's
Fixer.
Fixer.
Fixer, yes. Fixer, Fyxer or something like that. Yeah.
Buffy, do you
Digital
see
clutter. I would like to
anything
get a digital
consumers?
organizer. What's
Yeah,
that?
do you ever see a pattern with consumers now? Like as we move on, are the consumers, are homeowners, do you feel that they're changing as, each generation moves on?
Oh, yeah. So like kind of my age range, they're sort of the in between. So like I'm 47. And so like I'm finding that most of our clients are my age range because they have elderly parents that they're wanting to downsize because they realize they're going to have to deal with their estates. And they've been given some of the same mentality. So they struggle with it. So I'm going to say when I started, it was probably boomers, but now it's kind of more Gen X that I'm working with because they have young children, they have aging parents. So they're kind of smushed in between and they don't have time. So most of them are busy professionals. Like that's, again, why I talk about forgiveness, because a lot of times, people think, well, I should be able to do it all, right? But, you guys are working 50, 60, 70 hours a week sometimes. You've got young children and you don't necessarily want to tediously sort through all their, toys on a Saturday afternoon. It's just not what you're into. So I try to frame it for people. If we come in for our typical session is 6 hours and usually with a team of 2. So it's a 12-hour day. So I try to frame it like when we come in, We work for 12 man hours. If you work with us, that's 18 man hours, right? That you would have to do it on your own time without us. So think about that. In a day, we can knock out what it would take you 18 hours, 20 hours, 25 hours, because we're skilled. We know how to cut through it. You know, it's a time thing. A lot of times, that's the bottom line, you know, and a lot of times with the older generation, maybe they've been in the hospital, maybe they're in and out of doctor's appointments, you know, like there's a lot of reason, you know, maybe they're exhausted because they're going through cancer. Who knows? There's a lot that adds up to disorganization, and it's not just, I can't do it. Most of our clients absolutely can do it. They don't have the time, or they don't want to. Really, you know, we all hire housekeepers. We all hire people to come clean the house because we don't want to clean it. I feel like organization is the next level. You know, organization is the system, cleaning is the maintenance. So if you're just cleaning, you're just maintaining whatever organization you have in place. So if that's chaos, you're just maintaining chaos. So until you put the systems in place, and a system can be as easy, you know, because you say systems and it sounds like so big. You know, systems can be as easy as my coffee cup lives here. You know, my morning daily routine is all right here. You know, we set up a lot of coffee stations, a lot of tea stations for people because that's their ritual in the morning. A lot of smoothie stations get set up. So the idea, because usually it's all around the kitchen, you don't think to put it all in one system, one spot, because it requires you then to clean out another cabinet, right? It's interconnected. Our homes are interweaved. So, you know, if the garage is getting out of control, that means the laundry room is probably out of control too, which means the kitchen's getting the overflow, which means the kids' room, like it's an ecosystem. So you want to set up your ecosystem to make sense.
That makes total sense. And I see how that can happen. You know, one room kind of gets flooded, and then the next room, and the next room, and and we just let things go rather than dealing with it in the moment. And that's where a lot of things in life, I think that, you know, we've got to be in the moment and deal with things in the moment as opposed to just putting it off and procrastinating and just not dealing with it right then and there because we're too busy and it's like, well, I got to go deal with this, so I'll just let that wait. And then the piles add up and it becomes overwhelming, and then before you know it, you're stressed out. So it's a vicious cycle. It's a vicious cycle.
I
So
always say, our clients always call, and that's the first thing they say. I'm overwhelmed and I don't know where to start. If they don't say that, they're not our client, really. So if you hear I'm overwhelmed and I don't know where to start, those are our people. I mean, we can help anybody, really, but yeah, if you're uber organized and you're trying to make it look like Pinterest, we're not the ones to call. We're after form, function, and fit. Like that's what we're trying to make your life easier. So if they're just wanting, you know, a pretty pantry, which we can do, it's just not where my joy lives. My joy is in having somebody struggling and having them be like, I don't know where to start. And then by the end of it being like, I can breathe.
Yeah, I see this as a big stress reducer.
It is. Anytime you show up to a move, they're like, my angels have arrived. It's very nice. It is nice. And, you know, the beauty is I've been doing this a decade. I've been doing it my whole life. I've been doing it professionally for a decade. And the beauty is I've heard every, you know, objection. I've gotten really good at learning when to pull back when somebody's, you know, there's this deer in a headlight kind of look that comes on with people when they get a little too overwhelmed. So I've learned how to kind of like shift it. Like, I just love it. You know, when people are like, how'd you get into, I just love it. Like, it relieves so much pressure. Like I said, a lot of my clients are like, I can breathe. Like I come into my house and I felt constricted. I felt like I couldn't breathe. Because again, clutter is visual noise. You're walking in and you see a pile of stuff. That pile of stuff is like, I've been sitting here for 2 weeks, or I've been sitting here for a year and you haven't used me and I'm collecting dust and I'm causing you angst. And oh yeah, you forgot about this paper that you got to write. And like, you know, it's telling you all the things you need to do. And so of course it can be overwhelming. And then once we come in and we sort of settle it, now it's settled. It doesn't have to talk trash to you anymore. And a lot of times people, it's a lot easier than people realize. Like once you get over the hump of the initial getting going, because there is this point probably about 2 hours in that it does look like a hurricane hit. Like people are just like, sometimes they come in the room. A lot of our clients lately, don't want to do any of it. They just want us to do it for them, which actually it's easier for us because there's a lot less emotion involved with it than if we're hand holding and walking them through the whole process, which we do that too. It just takes more time. And usually with those people, they're wanting to learn. So we are building the seeds. Most of the time though, if we put a system in place, I'm going to say 90% of the people can maintain it. They just need it put in place. So that's what we're doing is we're coming, we're putting it in place. And then from there, they can maintain it. And then their housekeepers, which they normally already pay, can maintenance it. Yeah, just think of it. I almost want to call it household management because it's essentially what, like I said, I have a degree in organizational behavior, which is basically the efficiency of a workplace. So it's, you know, I just parlayed it into making it the efficiency of a home because we don't think of our homes that way. But if you think of your favorite store, if one day the item, you know, the aisle of groceries are in this aisle and then all of a sudden it's in the automotive section, you're like, what in the world? But that's what happens in houses, right? We intermingle our stuff, we don't zone it, and then it's all just chaos, or at least it feels that way.
There you go. So guys, you know, you can easily offer, you know, the consultation to your buyers and sellers and say, look, you know, one of the things that I do is I pay for your initial consultation with Buffy and you know, if you decide to go ahead, you can buy a package and whatnot. But, you know, this is really important to help, you know, my job is to help alleviate as much stress as I can during your transaction. So this is another step here that most people don't even think about that will alleviate a whole bunch of stress. So Cindy's asking if you have a brochure. Yeah. So
I do. I have a, yeah. Is it, I mean, who would I send it to?
Actually, if you want to put your contact information into the chat, that would be good. People can reach out to you directly. And then of course, you can also send me a copy of that and I can pass it out to everybody. I can put it into our Facebook group and people can download it.
The brochure I actually have, it's an actual like printed thing.
Oh, okay, printed. Okay, so yeah, so people can reach out to Buffy guys if you want one of those printed brochures. Maybe she can drop it in the mail to you, or you know, or if there's an event that you guys can meet up at in the near future, that would be great too.
Yeah, I love that. I do lots of one-on-ones, so if anyone's interested. Thanks for listening. I always love it. It's so funny because I'm always a little nervous, but then, you know, everyone kind of sort of struggles with one thing or another. So I love it when I sort of see the little light bulbs go off and they're like, oh, it doesn't have to be hard. I had a woman one.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I had it when I very first started. I had a woman one time that was telling me, she's like, my husband's always hounding me to get rid of these jeans in my closet. And she's like, what do you think? Should I tell him to leave me alone? And I posed the same question. I was like, well, if you lose weight, don't you deserve new clothes? And she was like, yeah. And then the next time I saw her, I guess she had cleaned out her closet and her husband was like, what happened? And she's like, I talked to Buffy. And I was like, oh, I made change and I didn't even have to be there. How cool is that?
There we go. Yeah. and you know, we got to remember those little rewards. I mean, yeah, when we accomplish goals and do things for ourselves, we should reward ourselves, you know, and you know, that's what helps to keep us going and motivated. All good stuff. And this is just something that people don't think about to do for themselves. They really don't. And so you know, whether it's for yourself or whether it's for your buyers and sellers, you know, a great way, even, you know, Brian, you know, people with mortgages is great closing gift or whatever. Just to help people out. I think it's a wonderful thing. Any other questions, comments? 'Cause we're at the top of the hour.
Well, thank you, Paul, and thank all of you for listening and interacting. I appreciate it. Yeah,
Buffy,
and you're right. A lot of people don't know we exist.
Yeah,
awesome. That's the thing. A lot of people don't know we're out there, that we can do the work.
So I say, people don't think about this. This is not something you hear about much or see, and it's one of those things that we could, if you offer it as an additional service that you provide in one form or another, that is a differentiator for sure. All right, guys. Well, I appreciate it. Yeah, awesome. Better than a knife for a gift. Yeah, I didn't see who posted that, but that was good. Uh, so yeah, it's a great gift, right? It's something more beneficial. Um, so guys, I appreciate you all being here. We'll go ahead. Oh, that was Cindy. Okay, yeah, very good, Cindy. Appreciate you all being here. Elliot, hang on for a minute, okay? And then Dagmar, you as well. And I'll see you guys all next week. And Buffy, thank you once again. We really
Thank you so
appreciate it.
much, Paul. Have a great
All
day.
righty.
Thank you.
Thank you.